Welcome to the Joy of Cruising podcast with your host, award-winning author Paul C. Thornton, a weekly conversation with the amazing cruisers featured in the Joy of Cruising trilogy, comprised of The Joy of Cruising, Cruising Interrupted, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again. Each book is a compilation of features about cruisers and cruise and travel personalities from around the world. It's the next best thing to cruising, hearing about cruising from the unique and diverse perspectives of Paul's amazing guests.
Hello, passionate cruisers. This is Paul, and this week on the Joy of Cruising podcast, I am delighted to welcome Jason Leopard, aka the Captain of Porthole Cruising. I wrote about Jason's story in my first cruising book, The Joy of Cruising, in a section called Cruise Bloggers, The Reader's Choice, which featured finalists and winners in the 10 Best Reader's Choice New Media Award for Best Cruise Blogger, sponsored by USA Today, along with its companion site, 10best.com, which provides users with travel and lifestyle content. Along with The Joy of Cruising, the following books, Cruising Interrupted and The Joy of Cruising Again, paid homage to cruise enthusiasts who desire to create, cultivate, and curate a blog and sometimes a related podcast and YouTube channel. Individuals like Jason epitomize what The Joy of Cruising is about. Individuals moved by their passion for cruising who choose to manifest that passion in an engaging way when not sailing. Prolific is the word that comes to mind with Jason, both in terms of the sheer breadth of his writing and videography, that ranges from bucket list cruising on a wide diversity of ships sailing great destinations, to an extensive knowledge, experience, and coverage of Disney-themed properties. At only 30 years old, Jason was the 10 Best Reader's Choice New Media Award for Best Cruise Blogger finalist for Porthole Cruising. Today, still in his 30s, the tireless cruiser and writer is now up to 196 cruises. And in addition to serving as editor-in-chief, the captain, at blog and YouTube channel Porthole Cruising, which he founded, Jason is the cruise editor at TravelAge West and contributor to other outlets such as Cruise Critic, Porthole Cruise and Travel, Travel Channel, Fox News, and USA Today. Welcome, Jason, to the Joy of Cruising podcast.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
So how you doing?
Doing great. I just got back from Europe. I was on the Silver Nova, the new Silver Sea cruise, and just adjusting back to the time change.
Silver Nova, that's high end, right? Silver Seas is high end.
Yeah, it was luxury. It was very nice. Very well done. Really impressed.
I want to hear about that so that I can fantasize. But before we discuss that and Porthole Cruising in general, tell our listeners about yourself, where you're from, where you live, your professional background, anything that you would like to share.
Sure. So I'm born and raised in San Diego, California. I'm a rare native, never left, still live here. Hard to break away, even though the cost of living is super high. But yeah, I studied graphic design and photography and video at college, but was always good at writing. And I was never really planning on getting into cruising professionally, but there was an opportunity to do some writing for the Union Tribune in San Diego, the paper here. Mm-hmm. And I submitted a piece of, basically what I loved so much about cruising. It was my initial piece that I wrote for them, and I've been doing it ever since. So that was in 2011.
Mm-hmm. So I would have thought that your cruising career was cast at 2 years old on, I can't remember the ship, but
That's right.
You were on the bridge.
Exactly. That was the 1984 launched original Royal Princess, the one that was christened by Princess Diana.
Uh-huh. What a great photo. What an apropos photo for the way things turned out for you.
Absolutely. I would not think, obviously then that I'd be doing this professionally, but boy, howdy, I've been in training my whole life, right?
When I wrote the advertising, the marketing promo for Joy of Cruising, I can't remember my exact line, but it was something like cruises from 2 to 96. Well, you were where I got the 2 from. So,
Nice.
and later on, there was a person in the book. I show her kayaking at age 96 in Costa Rica.
Hmm.
Uh,
That's awesome.
so tell us about popular cruising. How did it originate, and how is it going?
Yeah, so 2011 was when I started working on cruising professionally. But 2012, shortly thereafter, is when I formed Popular Cruising, kind of from an idea that I had in college for a magazine that would be called Popular Diversions.
Hmm.
And my dad's like, "Why don't you spin that into Popular Cruising?" So I was like, "Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good brand name." So I started that in 2012, and been doing it ever since. That kind of became my YouTube channel, where I do video reviews of all of the ships that I go on, and do a tour of show you exactly everything that you can expect on board venue wise. And
Hmm.
yeah, I was just checking my channel. I'm just shy of 17 million views, so it's not bad.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, father knows best. I
Right?
remember your dad from when you visited the construction. I believe was it Symphony?
We were there for the construction of the Harmony of the Seas, but the
Harmony.
Symphony of the Seas had also started being built, and the photo is the two of us standing underneath the symphony. Yep.
Okay, okay. So I did
So they were
label it.
both there.
I did label it right in the book.
You did, yeah.
It's a little late to worry about it, but
Right. No, it was the symphony that we're standing under, so you're correct.
okay. So I mentioned in the intro that you've been on an amazing 196 cruises.
Yep.
So let's talk about your latest. So you said you recently sailed Silver Seas.
Correct.
Is that your first time on that line?
No, I've been on actually been on the Discoverer that they don't have anymore. That was part of their expedition product, and also the Moon and the Spirit. So this is my fourth time or fifth time actually. I was on the Discoverer twice.
So tease the listeners because that is ultra
Yeah.
luxury, and I suspect most of us have not been. Well, let me speak for myself. I certainly haven't been on that class of ship. It's on my bucket list. So say a little bit about that.
Sure. So it's all inclusive. Basically, you never have to take your card out for anything. Even the drinks are included, except for like the most top tier that you'd still have to pay for. But all the dining is included. They have two restaurants that are a little extra with a surcharge, but they're definitely worth it. They're just
Hmm.
fantastic. That's La Dame for their French cuisine and Kaiseki for Japanese cuisine. But everything else is, nearly all entirely included. You even get free shore excursions and that kind of thing. So, but just a fantastic ship, brand new. Kind of a departure for them. This is the one that you've probably heard of for being asymmetrically designed. It kind of has this interesting meandering path on the deck plan, which is interesting. And I wasn't sure if I was going to like that or not. But when you get on board, it creates all these kind of fun little nooks and crannies that are nice and relaxing, especially on the pool deck, man. Just some great places you can get up there and rest and relax. And I was super impressed by this
Hmm.
ship. Just
Hmm.
beautiful.
What was your cruise right before that?
Right before that I was on Crystal, actually, the return of Crystal Symphony to sailing, which was pretty cool.
Enough for the listeners. Another
Yeah,
ultra luxury line. Jason, are
absolutely.
you gravitating to the high end lines?
It's hard not to, but I cover everything from Carnival all the way up, and I love them all for different reasons. So I'm
Yep.
not particular for I mean, granted, you can't beat luxury lines, but sometimes it's nice to just go back and enjoy the punchline or a Carnival.
Well, I tell you, Silver Seas and Crystal. As I've said to a couple of others who cruise kind of like you, let me know if you're in the market for an administrative assistant.
Right? Absolutely.
So Jason is one of those passionate cruisers I turn to for quotes in my new book, The Joy of Cruising Again, celebrating the return of cruising. Jason said I quoted a number of passionate cruisers in the beginning of the book, and Jason said, it was amazing to return to the sea and rivers in any form, on small ships like Uncruised Adventures or big ones like MSC Cruises. But the energy was different. The vibe was reemerging slowly. It was subdued. Thankfully, that is all now really starting to change. The masks are off, the guests are back in full force. It's high time for cruise travel to shine again and take back its rightful spot as the best way to see the world. And I couldn't say it any better.
Hmm.
So give us a few highlights of your post restart cruising.
Yeah,
Cruises.
absolutely. It's just great to be back on the water. And so many of the new ships that were waiting during the pandemic have now started to come out. And it's been just a joy to go on all of those and the joy of cruising. Hey, there you go. So it's been a blast. This year in particular was really special for me. I had a chance to actually cross all three of the major latitudinal lines. I went to the equator in the Galapagos. Then I crossed the Arctic Circle when I was in Iceland, and the Antarctic Circle when I was in Antarctica. So that was all this year, and that was really fun. That was probably my highlight.
Oh, man. But later on, we're going to get to your bucket list. I don't know that you're going to have anything to say. You've
Not
done
much.
it all.
Yeah, pretty much. I know. I'm really, really blessed.
So anything else?
Just
Besides those two
just
luxury cruises?
luxury. Oh, yeah, luxury cruising is the way to go, man.
So we went back to the pandemic. Now let's go way back. One way someone reaches 196 cruises and still in their 30s is to start early. So you started really early. So take us back. I alluded to it already. Take us back to your first cruise.
Yeah, so that was on the 1984 launched Royal Princess, the original that was christened by Princess Diana. We sailed on it the year after on 1985. And at that time, I was not even 2 years old. And we went on that ship, I think, about twice before we started sailing a lot on Crystal cruises as a family. But at the time, the Royal was super special. That was the ship that was known for being having all outside cabins at the time. It was introducing a lot of verandas. Just loved it. I think back then, I remember as a kid, you only remember like tidbits at that age, obviously. But I remember running around in the observation lounge and just kind of having fun and playing around there. And I think to this day, that's why I love observation lounges as much as I do. 'Cause probably one of my first venues to experience when I was even two, or not even two.
So what was the first cruise you went on where you could fully recall it?
That would probably be one. Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that would probably be when we started sailing quite a bit on Crystal cruises after that, because Art Rodney, who was the president of Princess Cruises, had gone over to start Crystal Cruises. And my parents were interested in following his career, and just because he was so innovative in the industry. And we went and tried out Crystal, and we were actually on the very, very first sailing ever on the Crystal Harmony, which they've since retired. And that was in 1990. So we were not even just the inaugural season, like we were on the very first cruise that Crystal ever had. And I started remembering it then, I would say. And yeah, the kids' facilities were rudimentary back then. They had them, but the cast of the production cast that was there for the production shows actually kind of played double duty. And they were the ones that were hosting the kids essentially as the counselors. So things have really changed since then. But yeah, loved it. And it was just really, a lot of fun just to kind of experience the world. There were times where I would be in school where they would take me out for a little while and I would bring my homework with me. But I would say that sailing the world was more of an education than ever being in the classroom, really. So it was a really special time.
Now, how old were you when you started cruising on Crystal?
So on Crystal, I would have not even been 5. I was just about to turn 6. So I was, is that right? Yeah, 6. So I was 6 years old when we first went on. And yeah, so we were sailing on that through like 1995, I think was the last time. And then I've since been back on them professionally, and since the relaunch now under the new ownership.
So you're not new to this. You've been doing luxury cruising. You were on Crystal when you were, I think you said 5 or 6.
Right.
One of my bucket list items is to get on Crystal before I turn 70.
Okay. Yeah. Nice. It's a great line. I highly recommend them.
Okay, so when you said you went on Crystal a couple of times. Have you ever heard of Mama Lee Wachstetter?
I don't know that name. No.
Yeah, she's a woman who, currently the kind of a craze or a trend is people living on cruise ships.
Right.
And Mama Lee, she started living on Crystal way back in the I guess it was the early O's. So, long before it was Vogue. And she wrote a book, I May Be Homeless. What is it called? I May Be Homeless, but I Live on a Yacht, something like that.
Nice.
She's in her 90s now. And I know that some people, when they go on, I do ask people when they go on Crystal, and I've actually run into someone who met her. So that's why I'm asking.
Awesome.
So let's come way forward to the near future. You told me that you're on track to hit 200 cruises by the end of the year. So what do you have booked?
Yeah, so the next one is Oceania's new vessel, the Vista. And then I'm just trying to lock in now on Explorer Journeys, the Explorer One. I'm hoping to schedule in there as well.
That's the MSC ship.
That's the MS they spin off from MSC Cruises, exactly.
Okay.
And then that's their luxury brand. And then Regent Seven Seas Cruises has the new Seven Seas Grandeur coming out. I'm on that for my 199th. And then Disney Wish will be the 200th. I was on that when it first launched, but my wife and I decided for my 40th birthday that would be a fun one. And it turns out that it's going to be my 200th cruise celebrating my 40th on that. So I'm really excited.
So that gets you to 200. You have any others booked?
Yeah, I do actually. I'm going on the Star Legend with Windstar to the Persian Gulf, actually, sailing in and out around Dubai area. So that's going to be special.
Windstar. So it's clear to me, Jason, you seem to have made a sharp turn to luxury. Right. Windstar's another ultra luxury line.
Yeah, it is exactly. Very nice. Yeah.
So do you have anything coming up on, for lack of a better way of saying it, what I would call mass market ships?
Nothing currently scheduled, but next year is when Icon of the Seas is coming out, so I'm sure I'll be on that. Basically, as the new ships come out, they invite me on because I'm actually the cruise editor at TravelAge West. It's a magazine that's for travel agents, and that's what I do besides Popular Cruising as well. So because of my two outlets, Popular Cruising and TravelAge West, I get to I have the pleasure of basically being invited on everything new as it comes out. So from mainstream all the way up to luxury.
Wow. Well, after pointing that out, let me reiterate my comment about if you're looking for an administrative assistant.
Right. Absolutely.
So I don't know how a guy who cruises like you has much of a bucket list, but what's on your bucket list?
Yeah, I've technically been to all 7 continents already. I did touch on Oceania via Micronesia, but I haven't actually been to Australia properly yet. So that is still on my bucket list. Would be the highest. Would be to go. I would love to do like a circumnavigation of the entire country and see like even the Kimberley coast. And there's some beautiful spots down there. My parents have been to Australia, but I haven't. And they rave about it, and I want to go back, or want to go for first time rather.
Well, I always ask interviewees what's on their bucket list, and even though you've done a lot of things in terms of vessels and destinations, what you said about Australia, that is typically number one, or a close number one. Galapagos tends to be way up there. Been there, done that, right?
Yeah, I did that this year. That was super, man. Great place to snorkel, everything, man.
Yeah, and then some of the luxury lines get mentioned again. Been there, done that.
Yeah, it's admittedly a short bucket list, but
but it's a nice one. Clearly Australia is on my list as well.
Absolutely.
So what are you working on at Popular Cruising?
Lots of new videos. Having been on so many ships, I'm already on track this year to have been on 17 cruises. I usually try to, like, my average is around 12 to 15, but just frequency.
Wait. 17 this year?
Just this year. Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. So because of that, lots of new videos are, in the can, as it were, ready to edit and publish the Popular Cruising, the YouTube channel there. So yeah, check it out. And then again, to kind of show you the breadth of all the cruises that I go on, I was on Alaskan Dream Cruises, which you maybe have never heard of, but it's actually owned by Allen Marine. They have the day touring boats that go out in Alaska to do the different sightseeing and whale watching when you're up in Alaska. And they have a fleet of vessels that do kind of smaller ship, almost expedition style cruising. And I was on them for the first time. And that was special. Before then,
I went on my first Alaska cruise this year.
Oh yeah, isn't it? It's beautiful up there. It never gets old.
Yeah, Yeah, it won't be. Yeah, it won't. It definitely won't be my last. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. Alaska gets, leave your heart in San Francisco. I think I left my heart in Alaska.
Yeah, yeah. That's when I answer a question, what place would I advise? I always say Alaska. Although that's that my goal is to change that in the future. But right now, based on what I've done, it's
Yeah,
Alaska.
I agree. To this day, no matter where I travel to all over the world, Alaska is honestly my favorite place to cruise to.
hmm Have you been on? So what else? What else this year?
Before that, I was also in Alaska again on the Koningsdam with my in-laws who had never been on a cruise before. So that was special.
Connie, that's Holland
It is
America.
Holland America. That was a great ship up there. I was on the Seabourn Venture, which is their expedition vessel, Seabourn in Greenland. And
Now let me back you
yeah,
up a second. You said you went to Alaska with your
yeah,
in-laws. Did you say that was their first time to Alaska or their first
their first
cruise?
cruise actually. So we kind of did this in reverse, and I actually wrote an article about this that you can find at TravelAge West about how normally it's the parents or the grandparents that take along the kids and the grandkids for the first time, but this was the reverse, and we took the parents along, so it was pretty neat.
Wow, first cruise and they go to Alaska. How, I
Yeah,
mean
and they
that
were
that
hooked
that's
immediately. They loved
that's
it.
as good as it gets.
Absolutely, yeah, and they agreed because they're all about it now.
And you say they were hooked immediately, so that's another one I can add in my column. I'm doing a unofficial, anecdotal calculate tabulation, and I'm at 9 out of 10 people get hooked on their first cruise.
Absolutely, that seems about right to me.
How can listeners follow popular cruising on social media and the internet?
Yeah, so the website's easy to remember. It's just popularcruising.com, and same for social media. It's just all of Twitter and Facebook and Instagram at Popular Cruising. So
hmm
no weird different handles to worry about there.
Now, one thing I recall from the book, even though it's been a good almost 5 years,
Mhm.
you and your wife were very big on all things Disney.
Yeah.
So that's kind of separate from your popular cruising persona. Say something about that.
Yeah, so I've probably been going to Disneyland, having been a native of San Diego, just up the coast is Anaheim there. So I've been going to Disneyland probably even longer than I have been cruising over the years. And my wife and I are annual pass holders, or they call them Magic Keys now. But
hmm
yeah, I love it. That's my passion personally. I do that whenever I'm not cruising. Basically, we're in the parks at Disney.
hmm
And in fact, after we get off the Disney Wish, we're going to be spending some time at Disney World as well. And I have, cruise Disney professionally too. I have some colleagues that I know from cruising that every once in a while they'll send me on a press trip to cover Disney related events. And in fact, I even had the chance to check out the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, which unfortunately just folded after only a year and a half in operations. But
Wow.
having a chance to see that was pretty cool. I'm a Star Wars fan.
So I take it you've been on all the Disney
Yeah,
ships.
all the Disney ships. Yeah, and I actually had a chance to
Now,
see
now,
the Fantasy being built at the shipyard. Even that was really cool.
now, let me ask you a question. Some listeners are aware. I'm sure you're aware. Disney bought that giant ship
hmm
that was not finished, and I guess they're going to use it to sail in Far
Yep.
East. Uh, do you have any desire to check that
Yeah,
out?
I do actually. I think it's interesting. So that was the one that was being built by Genting Hong Kong, which was actually the
Uh
same
huh.
owner that had Crystal Cruises, and during the pandemic, all of that kind of failed,
Okay.
unfortunately. So they sold that ship off, and they got that thing for a song, I think. So they're converting that over for Disney cruising, and it's definitely a departure for them. It's the first time that they've taken a ship that's already under construction, and it hasn't been designed from the ground up. So it'll be interesting to see what they do to convert that.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I have a real short piece in my new book where I half facetiously said, within by the end of the decade or something like that, there's going to be a ship built with a full amusement park on it. And again, I was kind of kidding. I was just talking about the trend of these really way out there attractions on ships.
Right.
And well, I wrote that jokingly, but I saw someone. I saw a post the other day on Facebook or somewhere on social media that surmised that Disney is going to put a full-fledged amusement park on that ship. I know they're not going to do that, but I'm real curious to see what they do.
It looks like it could be.
I am actually more interested in trying that ship out than I am regular, not that I dislike Disney, but I'm just kind of intrigued at what they're going to do.
Especially since it's going to be going for the Asian market too, just to see how they approach that differently. Because, the parks are obviously there and they're very popular. So I think they'll do great with the ship as well.
We'll be back after a quick break.
Welcome to From the Library with Love, possibly the only podcast inspired by an underground wartime library. I'm Kate Thompson, historical fiction author. Come and join me every Saturday as I unearth the stories of ordinary people with extraordinary stories to share. Spend an hour in the company of 100-year-old Bletchley Park codebreaker Betty as she reveals her wartime secrets. Be moved by the courage of Auschwitz survivor Rini. Or why not join myself and New York Times bestselling author Madeline Martin as we talk clandestine book clubs and bodice rippers in the blackout. From the Library with Love, available wherever you get your podcasts.
Yep. Before we let you go, Jason, a couple of fun cruise questions or light cruise questions, and then perhaps an oddball question that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with cruise. So the first one really is just for me to steal some ideas. Right. I like to try different things because I hear them on this podcast. So what's your favorite cruise drink and cruise food?
So I would have to say my favorite beverage is what's called the BBC. It stands for Bailey's Banana Colada. I love that.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I did pick that up from this show, and I did try that on my that was the Alaska cruise. In fact, I tell people this, I don't know why, it's just a piece of trivia, but I sailed on that ship 16 days, and I never had the same drink twice in one day.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yep. So and BBC is one of those that I tried for the first time on that cruise.
And what did you think?
Good. I loved it.
Right. Yeah.
It's a regular now. It's kind of the part, my regular, my go-to on cruises was pina colada and then Miami Vice, which is pina colada and was it strawberry daiquiri?
Yeah, that's a good one too.
Yeah. So I said I gotta branch out. I need to at least try variations of pina colada.
Right.
I loved BBC.
Yeah, that's my favorite. And then
what about food?
Food wise, okay. So back to the ultra luxe cruising. My favorite is Seabourn has a partnership with Thomas Keller on their ocean ships, not the expedition ships. They didn't do it with that, but the rest of the fleet, they have the Grill by Thomas Keller. And Thomas Keller is obviously a very well-known chef in the world, and having his presence on a cruise ship is amazing. And I every time I've dined there, it's just it blows my mind. He has this one clam chowder that is just transcendent. It's simple, but it's just like you take one bite of that thing and you're like, wow, it's just.
And you said that was on Crystal?
Oh, that's on Silver Sea. I'm sorry, I'm missing it too. On Seabourn, my bad, Seabourn.
Seabourn. Okay, and I guess I can't emulate that on other cruise lines until I get on Silver Sea.
Seabourn, sorry.
I keep saying Seabourn, but okay. The next one, what's your most wonderful or memorable or funniest, most outlandish, even most embarrassing cruise or port experience?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I would have to say sailing with my wife for the first time was pretty special. Before we got married, even, we went on the Disney Dream, and she was already a fan of cruising, which was helpful for me to, I didn't have to introduce her to it and get her in on it. She was already very much sold on the form of travel, thankfully. And so we went on that, and actually, come to think of it, the Disney Dream video that I did from that ship is my most viewed at 1.7 million just for that video.
Wow.
So you have to thank my wife for that one, and it was her presence, I think. Yeah.
Well, that's a good answer. I like that. The oddball question. So you have a large following, obviously the many popular cruising fans listening, and hopefully you've invited your friends and family. And let me just say to the people you've turned on to the podcast, we certainly hope you have liked what you've heard, and we'll come back to check out future and past episodes. So welcome, Jason's friends and family and popular cruising fans. Share one thing, Jason, that my listeners and your many followers don't know about Jason.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We were talking about that photograph of my dad and I underneath the Symphony of the Seas. And my dad is actually a self-employed building contractor, residential building contractor. And because of that, I've basically been growing up learning the trade of carpentry my whole life as well. So I'm more than handy, I would say. And my wife wasn't quite a believer of that until she could see it for herself. And again, we were at my in-laws at one point, and they had some projects that they needed done. And I was putting down some new flooring for them. And my wife's like, okay, yeah, you can actually build. That's cool. So she appreciates that. So the thing that's been fun with my dad is being able to go with that background on the cruises, on the ships. And actually, we view them from a very hardware standpoint and really enjoy the nuts and bolts side of things. And just seeing how well that they had been constructed, and it's an incredible process to see them at the shipyard.
Now that photo, and I've used that photo in the recent days to promote this episode. Is that the only time that your dad accompanied you to a shipyard?
No, we've been a couple of times now. We've been. We also saw MSC when they were starting to build the Seaside class, and so we've been on a couple of different yards. That was in STX France, which has now been renamed back to the old Chantiers de l'Antique, and then the MSC ship we saw in Italy at Fincantieri. And I've had a chance to go to Meyerwerf in Germany to Papenburg. That's a special one as well.
Well, that sounds like wonderful times, especially with your dad. My dad passed shortly before I started writing the cruise books and hosting the podcast. Sometimes I find myself wondering, what would he have liked to cruise? So it's great that you got that opportunity.
Absolutely. Because they took me along on my first cruise, and my parents, and they get to go along with me now. So it's fun to to share the love.
Yep. Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming on the Joy of Cruising podcast. And 5 years later, thank you so much for being in my first cruising book, The Joy of Cruising. That book has meant so much to me in my cruising career, and I consider all of the folks who were featured, who allowed me to feature them and tell their story to the cruising community. I consider them special people. We will be forever connected, because long after we're gone, our relatives can pick that book up, and you're in a book that I wrote. So thank you so much, Jason. And we will ask you to come back. You do so much great and special cruising, and I'm sure you're going to have a lot of stories to tell for years to come. So I expect to have you back sometime in early 24 if you will be back. And
absolutely, love to. And my pleasure for being here. Thanks for having me.
All righty. Well, all the best to you and to Popular Cruising, and tell your wife I said hello. And as they say, I'll see you on the ocean.
Nice. You too.
All right, Jason.
The Joy of Cruising and Cruising Interrupted, each $16.99 plus shipping, and new release, The Joy of Cruising Again for $18.99 can be ordered at the link on thejoyofcruisingpodcast.com. For each of the 3 books, use the discount code Joy of Cruising Podcast and get $4 off. The Joy of Cruising books are also available at Amazon. Order the ebook at Amazon or your favorite online retailer. Stay in touch by joining the Joy of Cruising Podcast Facebook group or following the Joy of Cruising Podcast on Instagram. We're constantly adding new shows. Please leave a review and tell a friend about us. We hope you enjoyed this brief escape to the ocean. See you next week.